Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Faith Family Focus. I am one of your co-hosts, Faith Suggs, former Duke women's basketball graduate and current marketing manager and CEO of Brand by Faith, as well as SIG Sports. Welcome, Schaefer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, and has also served on the executive board, also as VP for the RPFPC, but also known as the NFLPA Chicago chapter. Good morning, Dad. How are you? Happy Monday.
I'm doing well. Had a great weekend. Obviously, the weather's pretty bad, but just really, really exciting football games yesterday. I know we'll talk about it.
Right.
But great weekend. Looking forward to the show.
Great weekend. I don't know if you know, but it was a big weekend for basketball as well. They had the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and we saw a bunch of top 25 teams beaten by non-ranked opponents.
Right. A lot of parity in basketball, college basketball. Do you think that the portal had a lot to do with that?
Okay, no. What I think had to do with it is because what the trap is, and this is something we in the ACC, we play the ACC Big Ten Challenge. And this is a game that gets thrown at you right in ACC, they do it either at the beginning of conference play or right before. But for the SEC Big 12 Challenge, they throw it to you in the middle of your conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So you already have this rhythm of playing. Each conference has their own kind of style of play, right? SEC plays a different kind of basketball than ACC. ACC plays a different kind of basketball than Big 12. Big 12 significantly plays a different kind of basketball than Big 10, right? And Big East and so on. When you throw a different style of play into the middle of your season after playing Kansas, Baylor, West Virginia, right? Let's just say those teams, it's going to throw you off a little bit. So what we see is a lot of times those games are traps. So they'll play either a really great opponent from another league, but the style of play will be different than what they have been playing in the 6 or 7 games prior, and they normally struggle. So what we've seen is, Auburn went down. Kentucky almost got Kansas. There were Mississippi State beat someone. Oklahoma had the largest blowout upset deficit against Alabama. It was 20 points. Oklahoma's not even ranked. So we saw just go down, down, down. You saw a couple of ranked teams win, but we saw dog fights across the board on Saturday. It was very interesting to see. And you know what? It keeps going back to it. We've had a different top 25 on men's and women's side every week. Someone's been thrown around. You know what I mean? So I just don't know what's going on. And that's what I can throw up to the portal. But those games we saw on Saturday, those aren't portal games. Those are, you don't know what's coming. And it's the middle of the season. It's a non-conference game, so it doesn't really apply to your conference championships run. So all that. So it's a whole bunch of stuff into it. But the rankings and stuff, that what we're seeing, and they come out every Monday, we see a new top 5, top 1, top 2 every single time.
Okay. So today we're going to talk a little bit before we dive into it, but we're going to dive into a couple of topics, Faith. I thought that would be very beneficial. But before that, I want to share with our listeners, I had an opportunity to be a part of something really, really special this weekend. It was Kids Matter. I'm on the executive board. It's a program that gives kids healthy choices, teaches kids how to make healthy choices in their lives. And I got a chance to be a part of their senior executive board. They had a day of teaching the art of socialization. And myself and Jamar Williams got a chance. Jamar played for the New England Patriots. He's also on the executive board with myself.
Another Mac guy.
We had a chance to spend the evening with about 40 really, really neat high school members of the Kids Matter executive board. It was really, really neat. We got a chance to talk a little bit about our experience and the importance of being on a team, how being on a team helps with your your growth,
Hmm.
how it helps with resilience, how it helps with discipline, how we were able, although we were in so many years difference in age. Actually, I found out when I was a rookie, he wasn't even born, but you would never know it because of our stories, the commonality of our stories and our brotherhood, the things that we're talking about. And it's because of that team and that bond and that what you learn. And so we're encouraging the kids to get out of their comfort zone when they leave Naperville, when they go to the different schools.
Hmm.
Especially these are kids that are Generation Z kids. These kids, I think, have a level of consciousness about how important it is to um, um, just be open to the differences and in people. And it was a really special couple hours. I just want to share that. And then I want to talk a little bit about I last yesterday I saw something. um, Joseph Messiah from the Cincinnati Bengals made a mistake. And some call a game losing mistake. And I thought about over the years some of the biggest mistakes in big games and how not only do they impact the game, but how they impact the actual player, how they define them. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
and I have a very interesting, and I didn't tell you this before the call, but I have a very interesting perspective on that.
okay.
Um, and we can get into that, but I do want your let's give it a second because I want to know your overall thoughts. We have a few things happening right now, right? We had two big games yesterday, Chiefs versus the Bengals, and then the 49ers versus the Eagles. We now know that the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs will be in the Super Bowl on February 12th. Um, and I guess my question is, was yesterday everything you expected? And is this Super Bowl matchup something that you expected before going into the playoffs, kind of?
So to all of the questions, I thought it was going to be the matchup that I hoped for. I thought that they were both number one seeds. They were playing the best football. I was a little concerned about the Bengals. Bengals, end of the season really strong last year. Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. And the end of the season, really, really, I mean, they convincingly beat Buffalo, and I thought Buffalo was going to be the team. And so I was a little concerned, but I was hopeful because I am a big fan of Patrick Holmes, and I really, really admire his resilience, his courage. He showed leadership by, that last play. Obviously he's playing on, a high ankle sprain, as you well know, Faith, is probably one of the hardest injuries to play on. And
That you can play on 100%. Yeah.
yeah, 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 and for him to make the decision to run the ball at the end of the game lived up to all the bills. But as far as those two teams, history is being made with this game. First time the two African American quarterbacks are playing in the Super Bowl in history, and
Yeah.
it makes a statement in terms of the prototypical type quarterback, quarterbacks that can think, quarterbacks that are athletic, quarterbacks you look at and they exemplify every quality you see in a quarterback,
Yeah.
and you kind of see that, and it's really, really, really good to see.
In Black History Month.
Yes,
Just it
exactly.
all lines up really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing I was gonna mention is okay, one, both games were really good, even though
Mm.
Philadelphia Eagles kind of looked like they were in control the whole time, in
Well,
their game.
well, the
Um,
San Francisco did not have a quarterback.
they didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have a quarterback for most of the season, but at the end of the day, they still kind of got there. So,
Mhm.
hats off to them on that. But I think the Chiefs, the thing about sports is how fun is it that Kansas City Chiefs have been struggling against the Bengals. And they asked one of the guys, they said, "Is this a rivalry? How do you feel about the rivalry?" He says, "They're not a rivalry. You have won against them. It can't be a rivalry." And then you see a game that is to go to the Super Bowl, right? And this is how it always works out. It doesn't matter how many times you lost or won. games like this, they matter.
Wait, you
Crazy.
know why I'm laughing? How did they win that game at Burrowhead Stadium? How did they win that? I mean, it's just like, some of the backdrop of this game and some of the trash talking in the game is how Joe Burrow, owns Patrick Mahomes, and he's this DNA
Joe
father.
Burrow's a bad man.
He is great.
He's a bad man.
He's a great quarterback. More importantly, he's a great leader.
Yeah.
He's all that. You saw his. I don't want to pivot too far off it, but if you get a chance, viewers, if you get a chance to watch his Heisman acceptance speech, it was phenomenal. It was emotional. It was. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Joe Burrow, and I thought it was a really good game. But
I also want to tune in to the fact that how old is Joe Burrow to be?
Gross.
He's 26.
He's young.
Let's have a conversation about this. Jalen Hurts is 24. Patrick Mahomes is 27. And Joe Burrow is 26. Let's talk about, yes, we're having two African-American quarterbacks for the first time in the Super Bowl ever, right? Completely annihilating the stigma that surrounds that position. But also, let's talk about the age of where the quarterback is going.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership in itself is no longer about, years in the game, Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, like these people that have worked kind of for it, right? And have built these programs from the ground up and grown with them. We're seeing these guys as babies already. How many times has Patrick Mahomes been to the Super Bowl?
Right. Well, look at Josh Allen. Josh
Allen is another one. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about how the idea of what leadership is with a position that is literally the tempo and the pulse of the program. At the end of the day, that's what they invest the money in, is the person who throws the ball and the person that protects the person that throws the ball, right? The age is getting lower and lower, but we're seeing these opportunities and success so early on for that position that it's like, we're back. I think we're back even though we've been in the culture of quarterback, everyone knows everybody wants to be the quarterback. There's no question. We're in a time period though right now where we're seeing amazing quarterbacks that are tapping into a different level of skill level than we've seen. I mean, Josh Allen, how many times do you have to jump over a person for us to be like, okay, they're throwing their bodies out there. It's just so fun to Lamar Jackson. What are we talking about? We're seeing a time period with these young men that are reaching the Super Bowl, reaching the semifinals. Like, this is a great time to kind of see how leadership is changing in a league that really respects history, authority, tradition, all the things that have kind of built it up for what it is. Everything is like crumbling down, and we're seeing this new culture kind of arise. It's really fun to see.
Yeah. So I want you to think about this. You're seeing a prolific, athletic, intelligent, strong character. You have a generation of quarterbacks that have really became a really good, strong brand for the NFL. I mean, there's a league that's kind of been tarnished in a lot of ways in terms of what happened with that quarterback. I don't even want to mention his name, the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, right?
Well, and Colin Kaepernick, and there's a whole bunch of struggles.
Right.
Yes,
but the struggles. But you see it now. The face of the league is in really good hands with a really good young men, and it's proud to. I love watching them play. I love watching their interviews. I love it. I love it. And, getting back to their talent, not just the black quarterbacks, but they're all exemplify the totality of what a quarterback should be like. Not just that smart quarterback that can make decisions and stay in the pocket, but these quarterbacks can do what Brady can do. They can do what Bill Sims can do. They can do what Joe Namath can do. They can do every great quarterback out there. They can do all of that.
Yeah.
And still do what Michael Vick can do.
What's also interesting is, like, Originally, Tom Brady has been this. I mean, he's the GOAT of football, right? Everyone has already made that decision, and he's going to continue to make that happen because he won't retire. And I will continue to reference this. He won his Super Bowl, the almighty GOAT. He won his first one at 24. 24 years old and 189 days, right? So he was 24 and a half. We're seeing Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers didn't do this. Aaron Rodgers was 27. Brett Favre was something. Joe Namath was 20. Here's the thing. Joe Namath and Tom Brady were both 24 years old when they went to the Super Bowl or won their first Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts is 24. Josh Allen's 26. Patrick Mahomes is 27. And then who we were just also talking about, Joe Burrow is 26. Mm-hmm. And they're doing this routinely.
Well, we have
five guys doing this crazy stuff around the ages that we saw people, Joe Namath, Tom Brady, legendary men that we were like, well, the reason they are the GOAT is because they did this, 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 and this. We're seeing guys now doing that and like smack those standards out the window kind of and being like, where can we see this kind of go next? It's actually really fun to watch, like you said, a league like this heading into that direction in such a positive way with such positive individuals and like great leaders of their, like, no scandal, no nothing, no, just doing what they're needing to be doing in fun cities too, right? Philly, Buffalo, Kansas City.
You have what was the quarterback that the quarterback the San Francisco 49ers, not a quarterback, got hurt. That you got a whole bunch of, just to validate what you just said. I had to interrupt you because I didn't want you to forget about. There's 2 or 3 other quarterbacks in the backdrop. Yeah. They're 1 game away from the playoffs.
100%. Yeah, but like we're in a new time period for just football in that position.
Right.
So I mean, it's going to be interesting, though, how what we're in, the culture we're in for this league, how that impacts this NFL draft for the 2023. I'm very intrigued. What are these teams and what are other teams looking at these teams and thinking, all right, who do we need to be grabbing?
Yeah.
What do we need to be doing? Are we looking for our quarterback? Or are we looking for somebody who can try to get those quarterbacks? You know what I mean? There's a lot to it that's happening in the league. It's fun.
Yeah. What about Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets?
Yeah. Look, I'll be honest with you. How old is Aaron Rodgers?
Well, okay. They need a quarterback. No,
that's not what I'm saying. He's 39 years old. Let me tell you what happens when you hit 30 plus, right? For athletes. No, there is no other LeBron James. Okay. What LeBron James is doing at his age is uncalled for. No, it is, right? But what did LeBron James do? And he might, go back to Cleveland, but what did he do towards this later part of his career after 35 happened? What'd he do? Where did he move? What did the weather do? It got warmer, okay? It got more comfortable, right? His house is in, Malibu. Well, it's just different, okay? So Aaron Rodgers going into New York. Now here's the thing. He's been in Green Bay. Right.
That's the point.
But that's right. What Tom Brady do? He went somewhere warm. Okay. So all I'm gonna say is this. Yeah, they need a quarterback, but does Aaron Rodgers need the New York Jets? That's, I think, what the biggest question is, right? Because here's the thing. What's his overall goal? If his overall goal is to get to the Super Bowl, then he might as well retire right now. You know what I mean? He's not taking the New York Jets to the Super Bowl.
You don't think so? I think
that is the literal career tombstone cemetery. If you want to go there and he's 39 years old. He does not have time. Okay, he goes next year. Is he going to the Super Bowl right away? So he's 40. Boom. All right. When he's 40, say he stays another year. All right, Dad? Okay. Is he going to the Super Bowl the second year? Come on, man. Like, what we're talking about is like, yeah, he might be a good person, maybe bring culture.
We're desperate, Faye. We're desperate.
Right. But just because you're but how many times have we done this before?
I know. You know what? It's amazing. I don't want to pivot into a really special topic, but we have not had luck with quarterbacks. It was interesting. Two quarterbacks that played really well this year were first round draft picks for the Jets. Geno Smith, right? He played really good with Seattle. You know, I mean, he was a first round draft pick for the Jets.
Let's have a real conversation. Where else?
And Sam Darnold.
Where else do you get that much access to the locker room and the inside of an organization than you do in the city of New York?
Yeah, it's a hard place to play.
That's a terrible place for a quarterback to be,
Mhm.
right? What's his name? Who had Joseph Osai? That was
Yeah.
the correct name from last night. He's going to go home, right? You know, they have some videos of his teammates yelling at him in the locker room, whatever. That should never have been on social media. That's none of our business as fans. He's already probably guilty enough for his penalty, even though we'll talk about this. But what I'm saying is the Cincinnati media, right? Cincinnati media is going to tear him up, but he's going to be okay. like things are going to happen. They're going to find a new scandal. Someone's going to get traded. They're going to move on, right? They know the whole Super Bowl is not on him. In New York, how long do we have to know about Zach Wilson said this and that, and the players were mad at him, then the players were saying they weren't mad at him, and then all that positive momentum that they had going for the season just went boom. It was like,
he got
hurt. That's a cancer to an organization.
Yeah, right.
And New York is just not the place for quarterbacks to just be the only talent that you invest all your money on. And that's what I'm saying. And then also, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Let's not forget who Aaron Rodgers is in the last 2 years, 3 years of his career. He's really shown us some difference than what we started with in Green Bay, right? He got a little Hollywood on us. So all I'm going to say is, if he goes, will they win? Yes. There's no question, will they win? Yes. Are they going to win a Super Bowl? What happens when he retires? You start back over. So I guess the question is, if you want to secure your job, sure, bring in Aaron Rodgers, then blame it on Aaron Rodgers. But the Jets just have yet to really string together a core group.
I apologize for bringing up the Jets. Let's pivot into our topic, because you're right. I mean, it's just hard because they started out so good this season
without Aaron Rodgers, with the core group they had strung together and a new coach and all those great things, 100%. And then New York media did what New York media does.
Yeah. So Chris Webber makes one of the the most historical blunders in sports, right? You think about Chris Webber, you think about Bill Buckner, you think about I can go on and on, but wait,
stop. We didn't address something.
What?
About WNBA free agency. Candace Parker is going to the Las Vegas Aces. We didn't address that. And I'm just going to say, I already know there's going to be more pieces moving around. That's all I'm going to say. WNBA season is going to be real interesting. Continue. But
no, we talked about that last night. You're right. I mean, they're 2 years out of winning the WNBA World Championship.
They won last year.
Well, yeah, and now the whole team is dismantled.
No, it's not just. Chicago Sky. Chicago Sky is done.
Yeah, that's
we kind of knew that was going to happen. Yeah, the only person they have left is a WNBA MVP, Finals MVP 2 years ago, Kalia Copper, who played Rutgers. But yeah, that's all I can say technically. But yes, the Chicago Sky is donezo. Las Vegas Aces has Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Asia Wilson, Candace Parker. They're about to add a few more. So they have 3 first picks in the WNBA draft on one lineup. So that's all I'm going to say. The WNBA is getting real spicy lately. New York Liberty is about to be crazy. So I don't know. I love it. There's a whole conversation now where the NBA players are trying to figure out why the WNBA players aren't chartering jets. Something's brewing, but remember I said this 2 years ago on the 25th anniversary of the WNBA. I said, just remember, it's only been rocking for 25 years. Something happened after 25 years in the NBA that started making things become interesting. They were targeting their own audience. They were investing money into it. So we're seeing that turnover happen. I told you this, the year of 2023 is supposed to be a transformational year. So I'm just very interested to see how women's sports really impacts it. And this is if we think this is bad for the game, we're crazy. At the end of the day, Candace Parker going to play with that roster in the market of Las Vegas that loves going to those games. This is awesome. It's going to be so interesting to see. So that I don't know why that slipped our minds. We had to address that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. No, that's really good. I mean, we're talking about sports today, but
Chicago.
The topic of moving past opportunities, mistakes in our lives, not only in our lives, but in sports. And I thought about that after I saw Joseph Ossai last night and mistakes. So it made me reflect on how do we move past that? There's obviously a difference today than there were 20 years ago, 40 years ago, because of social media. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I mean, I know that I had a very similar situation like that in college. There's another story I never shared with you. We're playing Dayton. It was the last play of the game, and it wasn't last play, it was the last quarter of the game, and the receiver was right on the sideline. I hit him late, and they got the ball back and ended up kicking the field goal and winning the game, But, it didn't define, it didn't, it was a mistake, and you learn how to move on, just like Chris Webber moved on, But I wanted to get your segue into this topic and kind of talk through that.
Well, I have a very different perspective on this.
Different?
Yeah, Webber called a timeout, and they didn't have any timeouts left. That resulted in technical, and then a free throw, and they lost the game.
Right.
Instead, somebody called timeout from the bench, which at the end of the day,
he traveled before that. Right?
What?
He traveled before that.
Yeah, well, he was supposed to have the ball. That's really what the real situation was. He was supposed to have the ball.
Okay.
But here's what I will say about this. Mistakes happen in sports. Mistakes that cost games happen in sports. But if you think that mistake is what caused you to lose, that's where I get frustrated. Because there are 4 quarters, 3 quarters, 2 quarters, mistakes, the Patrick Mahomes fumbles, all these things that build up for the Cincinnati Bengals, let's use them as an example, that had to come down to that one penalty.
Right.
So that's why I always am like, all right, the kid traveled, the kid called timeout, whatever, right? That's not the reason you lost. The reason you lost, and this helps the psychological, the reason you lost is because there's always these little things that add up. And that's why they say in games like last night, in games like the Final Four, anything that's that important, you literally have to be at 100% for 40 minutes, for 30 minutes, for as long as the game or match is. Because the moment you allow something to be tossed up to chance, you're playing Russian roulette with your career. You're playing Russian roulette with the outcome, right? The penalty right there, he made the mistake. But if you get mad at just him for losing that game, when you weren't probably mad 4 other times leading up to that moment, you know what I mean? So it's always easy for us to place the blame directly on that person. But I've always thought this about the Chris Webber situation. There's many people to blame in this, right? The coaching staff, okay? How much was it communicated that you didn't have any timeouts left? But also, how many times did you do end-of-game situations in practice to understand that? How many times did you guys miss box outs in that game? How many times did you maybe call a timeout you didn't need to call that you could have had 2 at the end of the game? There's so much to it that everybody involved is at fault, right? So that to me is the first way to psychologically release, like, all right, I made the mistake, right? But in order for you to really understand sports, you have to understand it's never just one thing that leads to a disappointing outcome.
Right.
And that's life, right? It's like when a kid is reading books, right? There's this thing, they do the reading log at school, right? And maybe they forgot their reading log at home. But they read all the books, but they forgot their reading log at home because their mom said, put it in your backpack for tomorrow. And they say, I'll do it in the morning. And then they go to school and the teacher's like, where's your reading log? He's like, well, I did read all the books. He's like, well, you can't prove that. And he gets mad because, it's all on. No, no. There's steps that lead up to doing things correctly. There's steps that lead up to helping you win. And so I think the first thing to address is that, yes, I made a mistake. I won't make it again. But it's also acknowledging it's not the end all be all of life because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did this, right?
We'll dive into that. I don't know if you saw the interview, but Coach Zach Wilson said exactly the same thing.
Mhm.
That there was, in a basketball game and football game, eh, no one plays perfect. Every play there's going to be a breakdown. Every play there's somebody's going to make a mistake, right?
Or
And
else no one will succeed in that play.
Right. And so that's what coaches reiterate when they're coaching us. Mentally, they're coaching us to every play. Make sure you do your role because you don't know if your breakdown is going to cost the team, whether the game or point or a touchdown, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
But for him to say that after the game,
That's all-
validates what you're saying, right? Is that
Yeah.
that wasn't necessarily the play. I mean, there's a whole bunch of plays that led up to that, but
Yeah, if he didn't get the penalty, we'd have a different conversation right now.
hmm hmm
But also, right, there's so much that led up to it. And then there's also so much that had to happen after it in order for them to still win. You know what I mean? Like there's levels to everything, there's layers to everything. And I think that one of the things you see is that some athletes are not taught that early on.
Okay, specifically what they not taught what?
You're not taught or hear coaches say, and I was in a if I was in a timeout, I heard a coach say, no, 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 this isn't just all on Schaefer's fault. It's everybody's fault because we did this, because we did that, because we did it. And that's why everything was weighing on that one play. And because that an athlete does, if they do or they don't hear that, that changes their whole perspective on mistakes. Jaylen Brown, 2 games ago, had the opportunity against the New York Knicks to make 2 free throws, time out on the clock to tie the game to go to overtime. He missed both. The next game, he had 30 plus points, had the opportunity to shoot the free throw to put them up to go overtime against the Lakers. Oh, I'm sorry, to win in overtime against the Lakers. He made them. He's made his free throws. Just one game apart, right? Significantly different. Now, if he wanted to go into the next game against the Los Angeles Lakers thinking only about the fact that he missed the 2 free throws that would have saved them from losing to the New York Knicks, he would have then looked at that free throw and been like, I just missed 2 free throws. I just missed 2 free throws. I just missed 2 free throws. I'm probably going to miss this one. Or don't miss to a point where he would miss the free throw. But it's the idea of having amnesia. The moment you make a mistake, and what helps that is understanding that there's more to my mistake by myself in team sports. Now track and field is different, right? But individual tennis is different. Like those are very different psychological, mental toughness moments. But in team sports, it's understanding that yes, my role and everything I do must be perfect. But understanding that I also I'm in tune with 10 other people, 12 other people, right? And so it's not completely all on me. I just have to be better next time. I won't make that mistake next time, right? It's finding a way to release all of that pressure because pressure is like a chokehold on your success.
Yeah.
And that's like, remember we talk about people being clutch. Who's clutch, right? Are you clutch in end of game situations? In plays like last night, are you able to do everything right?
Let me ask you this question, Faith. So I don't know if you remember this, but the Buffalo Bills were in the Super Bowl like 4 years in a row, and Scott Norwell missed the game-winning, losing field goals, right? Those type of things. How does players move on from that? And you and I know we are taught that a
Like,
mistake
that's yeah,
they don't really define you, right?
they
That's why
don't.
we grow up during the course of the game, the course of our careers, in whatever sport, we're going to have heartbreaking moments, and
Mhm,
we're going to be the one that okay, you cost us the game, right? You got to hear that noise.
mhm.
How do you deal with that noise? How do you continue? Because I know there's a couple athletes that it defined their careers,
It
right?
defines their careers 100%. It shouldn't.
I know, it should. We know that.
But, you know,
What
for punters, for kickers, for sure, it's a big deal, right?
right,
But I will say this, in order for you to be in important games, you have to have done something right leading up to it.
right.
And I think, the first thing you do is leave the country and turn off your social media, probably is best as professional athletes, but as regular people, probably the same thing is just completely disconnect from the situation in itself. Right? That's gonna wake you up at night. That's everything. How many times do people like go out? Think about this. It's just a person thing. How many times do you go out to a party or a dinner or an event and you come home and you're like, I wish I said that differently, right? Or I wish I did that differently. And then at night you're staring up in the dark when you're supposed to be sleeping and you're thinking about how you want to replay that situation over in your head. It's
Oh,
very similar to sports, right? But here's the thing, everybody does it. Every single person on the planet has a moment like that where they come home and they're like instant kind of like social regret. Like, nah, right? I could have answered that differently and that would have made me seem more cool. But if I
yeah,
could answer that differently and they would have understood more of what I was saying, right? There's a lot of ways we have those situations. And I think that that's human nature is to continuously self-critique and be better. But I think that one of the things that helps you move on from those initial mistakes and initial like hardships that happen in your life that are caused by you in a way is finding a way to let go and just not, it's like a scab. Don't poke at it, right? You made the mistake. All right. What exactly are you going to do? Unless there's a time machine made, you cannot go back in time and change how you wanted to do something, right? Just allow yourself to get 1 week away, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away. How can I make sure it's never going to happen again? How can I make sure it's never going to happen again? How can I? And then you start to be able to like, all right, now let me joke about it a little bit. Let me relax. Let me, you know what I mean? There's ways that you do it, but one of the biggest ways is to not continuously hurt yourself with your mistake. Reminding yourself, well, I'm terrible, right? Because this is what you see a lot of athletes do. They first think there's two different types of people, right? Joe and Holly both made a mistake. Joe decides, I'm going to shut down, right? I'm going to lean into the negative. I'm going to lean into my failure. I'm going to lead into my pain. And Holly goes, dang, I made a mistake. I'm disappointed in myself, but I'm not going to shut down, right? Joe continuously shut down. That's what we see a lot of athletes and humans make mistakes. They immediately go into shutdown
yeah,
mode.
get mobilized.
Self-critiquing, self-hate talk, right? Leaning into like making negative jokes about themselves, right? To other people to try to find someone to be like, no, 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 it wasn't that big of a deal. No, I suck, right? We see it. We've seen it in certain athletes and people. They immediately self-hate and self like bad talk themselves in front of other people, to the mirror. You are continuously going to be in that position. It's going to negatively affect your production when you stay in that space,
Mhm.
right? You're returning to an empty well. And I think that that's the biggest thing is that there's two different type of people in this world. You have to identify who you are, right? You also have to encourage people to get out of that, right? I think it's okay to pay attention to what you did wrong. It's okay to try to figure out why you did it wrong, but it's another thing to just continuously think about it and continuously stay in that place and allow it to negatively affect your career, right? The greats have made mistakes. Michael Jordan has never not made a mistake. LeBron James has never not made a mistake, right? Okay? Tom Brady's made mistakes. Many, many.
Well, even the course of the game, you look at Patrick Mahomes yesterday. He made a
He
mistake.
just dropped the ball, just
Right,
flew
right,
out of his
right,
hand,
right,
right? If Patrick Mahomes wanted to be like, oh, I suck,
right.
how dare he? You know what I mean? He can't. He cannot afford to in the position that he has on that team, right? So it's kind of like you have to be able to check yourself and be like, hold on a second. Hold on a second. For a second there, I forgot that football is not real life. You know what I mean? Like, you have to really be like, will you relax? Yes, you didn't get a $100,000 to $200,000 bonus. You don't get to play in the Super Bowl. You don't get a chance to do that. You got to start all of that rushes back to you. And then for some reason you're able to think that's all on me.
Let me ask you this question. It gets back to the psychological pressure that Joseph is receiving right now, because the noise today is a lot louder than the noise 10 years ago because of social media.
Social media.
Right? Fans are brutal,
Mean.
And then you said,
Yeah, right.
I didn't see the in the locker room, but even your players can be brutal because they're watching. Your dad never had a chance to even play in a Super Bowl game. I wasn't even close. That's a lifetime dream to play in a Super Bowl for these guys, and for someone to make a mistake that cost them their opportunity. Right?
Yeah, it's not just about. That's another thing is for me as a person that witnesses it. Right? There's one thing to be angry and be like, of course, initially your frustration is going at that person because in the immediate situation you're in, you somehow see losing and that person connected. Because at the end of the day, that's what in that moment, we only live in live time. We only are able to see because of that happened, right? But as time goes by, as you take your jersey off, if you move on, you go get breakfast the next day with your family, or you go on vacation and you start reminiscing about it, you think back to be like, gosh, remember that time also in the third quarter? Remember the moment in the first quarter? Do you remember? There's so many things, right, that lead up to that failure. And so when I watched that, it came up on SportsCenter today. The video came out. The Bengals were walking into the locker room, and one of the players said, "Why would you rough up the passer?" Loud, in front of the press, in front of his other teammates. And maybe he thought in that moment, frustrated, angry, I'm not going to the Super Bowl. I'm mad. I'm not. If I say it right here, he's not going to hear me because he's maybe at the front of the right. We know we've been in these spaces, but now everybody can hear you, and you look like the butthead. Because even though you're right and everybody feels it, but like, what is that doing? Is that going to all of a sudden, the moment you said that, God is going to snap his fingers and completely reverse the situation that you're in? That's wrong to do. Yeah. Right?
But people don't understand.
Oh, I know you wish you weren't in his position.
Right. I'm not making excuses. I know what it's like to play in the game. I know what it's like to be in that situation. This kid was held. He finally broke away. He chased that boy all the way across the field, right? And the adrenaline, the competitiveness, all of that, right? Yeah. He's I can't wait to push this guy once he gets out of bounds.
Yeah, he's like, this is my moment. I'm gonna be the guy that saves the
football. He's playing football, and he made a mental error that wasn't intentional. Yeah. So that's what people that I get frustrated with, because as a former athlete, I know what's going through his brain during the course of a play, especially being on defense.
100%.
Right? So it's really, really sad. I just hope that, he knows that these negative thoughts, that play doesn't define it. He's a young career. I heard interviews yesterday. You think the Bengals going to cut him? What is how stupid is that? Right? Exactly.
Okay, but then someone's gonna willingly pick him up.
Right.
He played on a team in a starting position that almost went to the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
Why on earth? And that's the thing. Here's the thing. And I'm not saying, look, okay, I'm not saying that just because you didn't play sports, you can't talk sports.
Right.
But and this is that Shannon Sharpe Skip conversation. I don't know if you've been following it, but people are a little frustrated with the relationship of those two, even though Shannon Sharpe is hilariously out of control sometimes. Right? No question. When he was at that at the Lakers game, that was comedy. It was funny, right? He will literally go to the ends of the earth to support LeBron. But I will say this. There's moments when Skip Bayless or Shannon, and it's a perfect dynamic of what talks between playing the game and being in those spaces and not.
Right,
Right?
right, right.
And you know, Shannon Sharp's like, I've been on that field. I've made those mistakes. It's just I've been lucky enough to not have had my mistakes be the reason that we've lost in those immediate moments, right? You know, right? You know the frustration. You know what it's like in the locker room. You know. But as someone who doesn't know, that just covers, right? And has amazing opportunities to learn the game through secondhand
Or read
reporting,
up on it, right?
right?
Yeah,
At the
right.
end of the day, they don't know that that's a ridiculous loss on investment, right? And the biggest mistake teams make is after they make it this far, they think they have to redo everything and think that they're going to be able to make it that far again. They're not. You got to try to keep that core unit as together. Why is the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, Dad? Right? Why did they go so many times to the Super Bowl? One, they got Patrick Mahomes, but also because they tried to find a way to keep their core guys. And they lost Tyreek Hill this year. That was a big loss for them, but still found a way to make it back to the Super Bowl by trying to keep their core unit together somehow.
Well, you think about this. I don't know if you saw this in the dynamic of the game at the end. All their wide receivers were out. Their ability, Bieniemy, their offensive coordinator, their ability to adapt to the game and use their tight ends, the quarterback that's 50%, and they still managed to make the adjustments and win the game, right?
Yeah. Imagine if after every mistake Travis Kelce made,
Right.
Kansas City Chiefs decided, you know what, you can't replace Travis Kelce.
Will you ever see them? Sometime Patrick will throw him a ball that's behind him. Sometime he'll drop Patrick's pass. They don't ever look at each other and say, right, right.
Because there's an understanding
Right.
and there's a level, and that's the hard thing. Here's the hard thing about football is that you have two sides of the ball and basically two different completely teams within one team.
Yeah.
And that's different than basketball. At the end of the day, that's so different than basketball because every single person on that team, even though there's different positions, you sometimes have your guard and post situations where they don't agree. That happens often, but you never have two sides of the team that don't see the game the same way.
Right.
Where with defense, they're seeing it from their point of view, which is a super asset, but offense is seeing it from a different point of view, right? Have you ever seen defense go out there and completely shut down? They lock the team up, 15, 20-yard, boom, y'all ball. Here you go, offense. Do what you need to do. We put you in a perfect position to score. And
Yeah,
offense,
the 85 Bears did that.
right? They throw an interception. The defense
Right.
is like, what the? And they're like, well, you guys aren't seeing their defense, right? So I think that there's always that situation is another thing is it's always easy to assume you could do it better than someone else when you're not in their actual shoes.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest trick to probably self-happiness in living as a human being, right? Is your ability to understand that maybe I don't understand and I should just try to respect the situation. Frustration is guaranteed, frustration is understood, but for me to think that it all was on that one person's fault because I could have did it better, I would have done it different, you weren't out there. You don't know. You do not know.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Is why on earth would they cut him?
I know, right? But that's
because they know. Here's the thing: the people who make those decisions that have to cut people, they know if they cut him,
somebody go pick him up.
Kansas City Chiefs is like, oh, interesting. I remember him. Boom, come over.
Did you see the rest of the game? You see all the other plays he made, right? Because of one mistake, right? So I guess what I want to do is I thought we wanted to end the show with how, for those who are younger that may experience something like this, you and I obviously have been athletes. How do you move on? There's feelings, there's taking responsibilities, there's crediting your success, there's moving on, there's learning, right? What are some of the things that you can share with our viewers that
I think, but when we say, I think there's 5 ways to do it, like you just said. when you feel your feelings, it's acknowledging your fault. It's acknowledging that you made a mistake, but it's also acknowledging that you care enough to care. It's acknowledging that you're allowed to be in this position. It's acknowledging that you're blessed to be in this position, to be able to even make those mistakes, and allowing that to kind of hit you, right? It's not shutting down, but it is, don't allow anyone else in your space while you're trying to feel those feelings, because that's detrimental, right? Another thing is when you say take responsibility, it's acknowledging I missed those free throws. I have to be better next time. But it's also understanding that, okay, well, I also missed 2 box outs in the third quarter. I have to do better at that too. I have to, there's a lot of ways to do that. And also, that's not just that person, it's the people around them. It's taking responsibility. Like, all right, Jaylen Brown missed 2 free throws, but we put him in the position where we turned the ball over 25 times. And that's the reason why the game that came down to 2 free throws.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe we missed 2 free throws in the first quarter. If we had those 2 free throws made in the first quarter, we wouldn't have the same conversation in the fourth. Crediting your own success, understanding, like I said, where you are, being blessed, being happy, being thankful, and not allowing that to be taken down by the one mistake that you made in that moment. And then moving on and learn, like I said, is all right, taking like a grain of salt, making sure you don't do it again. Right? Don't allow it to invade your brain so that it's just something that you do again. Don't allow it to change who you are so that you do it again. He shouldn't rush the quarterback for the rest of his career any differently than how he did. Right? He shouldn't lessen up. He shouldn't weaken out. He shouldn't be scared of no, he should be okay with doing that again. But he should understand now, okay, late game, let me make sure I know the difference between, let me watch the film. You know what I mean? But don't let it change who you are. That's not the way. Chris Webber should never have gone to the NBA and then thinking, I don't want to be in the game at the end of the game, right? He shouldn't have that mindset.
Right.
Or else he would never succeed, right? They would never want him in those positions, right? Because if people see that you think the same way that you once did, they're also going to think, all right, unfortunately, we can't put you in that position because we've seen what you've done and we see that you're scared of what you have done.
And haven't learned from it. Mm-hmm.
You haven't learned from it.
That's
you haven't
good.
learned from it, and you haven't found a way to be confident in it. Own it, right? You own your mistake. I did that. I'm not doing it again.
Right.
And I think that the interesting part about it is quarterbacks can't afford to not do that.
Right. They have to. It's almost like, just wash it away. Just wipe it off the blackboard. Next, just get rid of it. Go next. What's next,
So that's it. That's what I think is just
I like
trying to find a way to roll with it.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought about that last night. I know there was a couple of things we were talking about, but I thought this would be advantageous. I just hope that he is able to get through all the social media noise, right? I mean, that's something that exists now that
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what it is, right? It's what it is. Social media is never going to change.
Right.
Social media is never going to change. And there's always going to be people who just are mean to be mean. And that's another thing to acknowledge. That, they just decided to be mean today because they can. And I am the voodoo doll. Okay. Towards, you know what I mean? So, but again, thank you everyone for joining us this Monday. What a wonderful show. We'll be back on next Monday to discuss who we think is going to the Super Bowl, what our predictions are, and other things.
Was it Super Bowl, Faith? Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
I don't want Fly Eagles Fly, but I am a big, I love Patrick Mahomes. But we'll see. Again, this is Faith Family Focus. We're going to use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on strengthening their own family core. And of course, our slogan,
let go, let God. Let go, let faith. Let go, let God.
Everyone have a wonderful week.
Wait, happy birthday this week.
Thank you. Thank you. What day is it?
February 3rd, 2-3.
Okay.
But next week, this time your birthday had been passed. So I wanted to.
I appreciate that. I don't not appreciate. All right, everyone have a wonderful week. We'll see you soon.